Hello and welcome to episode number 31, Rowan. I've noticed every time I do that, you always laugh.
It's because there's always a pause because you wait and they don't see it. But
Yeah,
you
no.
click it and then you go, hello.
You have to wait because it takes a couple of seconds for it to properly kick in. But welcome to the Top Corner podcast, episode number 31. It's so annoying because it takes so long for it to actually kick in to go live. Joining us as always for the podcast, we have Kieran D with a picture of Leroy Sané, Kieran L, and we've got Rowan. How are we all doing?
I'm good, you?
I'm not too bad, thank you very much. Now, we've got a big week of football to talk about, of course. We've got to get through a lot today. Our Bundesliga score prediction table is finished now, which means we'll find out who the winner of that is. Probably no surprises. I could see Kieran L rolling his eyes, probably thinking, well, there's no point.
No one got the Werder Bremen score right because they won 6-0, so no one got that right.
Oh, that means we can't win. Oh,
yeah, no, it means, unfortunately, me and Rowan didn't win it. So, I wonder who it could be. But we'll find out a little bit later on with that. But in terms of the other things going on as well, of course, the Bundesliga is finished, but we've still got loads of other leagues going on. So we're going to today be talking about the Premier League, the Serie, La Liga, and a whole host of other things on the side. And we've already got somebody in the stream. Bernaldo's in the building. He says, "What up, lads?"
What up, Bernaldo?
Yeah, Bernaldo.
Welcome in. How are we doing? And he's kind of given us an opening point, actually, to talk about here. Which is something we were going to initially talk about. He said, what's the story with Wigan? Also, Chelsea, Inter and Dortmund, who's got the best new kit reveal? So we'll start with the Wigan thing first. And we'll talk about that, of course. You might have seen this morning that Wigan have become the first club to officially come out and say they are currently in administration because of the coronavirus that's been going on over the last couple of months. Of course, Wigan in real life right now have been doing incredibly well in the Championship. I believe they're 7 games unbeaten. They've kept clean sheets for about 5 or 6 games in a row. It looked like things were going well for them until this morning when they came out with the news of the administration issues that are going on at the club. Now, it's likely that this won't be the only club we're going to see over the next couple of weeks, maybe months, come out and say that maybe they're going into administration or they've got financial issues. I was just going to ask, of course, as Bernaldo's asked himself, what's your opinions on the situation of Wigan and whether actually we'll see any other clubs in the near future come out and also announce that they've gone into administration or having financial issues themselves?
Overall, as much as the 12-point deduction would aid my team, it's a massive shame. It is, because I hate seeing football clubs go into administration, no matter, maybe, even if it was my biggest rivals, all right, maybe Leeds, they can go. But anyone else... No, you never want to see it because obviously where I am close to home is Bury, and I've been to many Bury games. I played on the pitch at half time, and then them leaving, it's a shame. And I know for people of Wigan and people that have literally seen their team go from winning an FA Cup, what a joyous moment that would be, to within not even 10 years, and they now may not even be playing Championship football. It's a massive realisation. I do think we will see other clubs do this, but more likely, I think, to be League One, League Two, teams that aren't back up and running, sort of thing. So maybe, and as you say, they're on great form. They won 3-0 last night against Blackburn, and everything seems to be going well until this morning.
And obviously, it's sad to see. No doubt, the Wigan fans last night, after their big win against Stoke, if you did see the goals, let's not talk about Jack Butland and how terrible he's come as a goalkeeper, but they must have been delighted, of course, with the win, moving up the table pretty much, I would say, nearly safe in terms of how they've been playing. Not necessarily exactly safe yet, because it's still really tight down there at the bottom, but slowly creeping towards safety. And for that to come out today, could you say now that is going to hurt the team as well? They've been on this really good riding the wave, getting some fantastic victories against some really good sides. I mean, yesterday, of course, Stoke have been struggling, but they've picked up other results elsewhere against some of the mid-table and upper-table teams. Could this now affect Wigan's form?
That's interesting, because the players could look at it one way, because even if they get, for example, do you remember when Bolton got their 12-point deduction, but even the kids were giving their all every single time, and they just want to try and, say we deserve to be here. So it may mentally affect them, but I think in terms of work rate, it could flip round and they just say, well, let's overcome this. Because if they get 12 points deducted, let me just check the table.
I've just got it up now. I was thinking the same as you. If Wigan have a 12 points deduction, which is usually what happens in terms of a club going into administration, they would drop to the bottom of the league, but they'd only be on 38 points.
Yeah, they'd still well be in with a fight. Whereas if a team like, for example, us, we got deducted, we'd be 10 points behind 23rd. So they are very...
There we go.
All right, they are very well. Viewers. They're in the fight no matter what. So for me, I think the players would look at it and just go, you know what? Look, it's happened, but we'll prove why we shouldn't even be in this fight anyway, because that's where they are now, and they're relatively safe. So I think it'll work the opposite. I'd hope anyway.
And most importantly, all the victories that they have picked up realistically means, I know this isn't a great way to look at it at all, but realistically, a 12 points deduction, considering the amount of games they've gone unbeaten right now, isn't necessarily, it's a bad thing, of course, but because they've picked up so many points recently, it doesn't affect them as bad if, let's say, they've been on a 6-game streak where they hadn't won any games. You can see the games that they played, a win against West Brom back in February before the break happened, but since then, a win against Huddersfield, who have been struggling, Blackburn, mid-table side, Stoke, who've been struggling. And, of course, they've got a tough run of fixtures still to come. If a points deduction does happen, they've got a big game against Brentford, who are looking for the top 2 spots now. QPR, who are in mid-table. And then after that, Barnsley, who are relegation battle. Hull, relegation battle. Charlton, relegation battle. And last game against the season, which is a big game, could potentially be a decider for Fulham, whether they can try and push towards playoffs or not. So if they do get a deduction, big games to come for them.
They were probably looking at the fixtures before the points, just thinking, you know what, we'll probably stay up. We've got a couple of easy games in terms of games that they should win against these relegation teams, but now it makes the league way more interesting, way more.
Absolutely, and I think it's interesting to wonder as well, and I don't know what the logistics are of the whole points deduction situation. That it depends on whether there is a specific cut-off point of when a points deduction could be given, because we know there's been a lot of stuff in the Championship with Sheffield Wednesday, who had a lot of issues with their stadium being sold to pretty much fund the club and other things on the side. They were initially supposed to be given a points deduction. 10 years later, we're still waiting for it, and there's nothing been coming out of the EFL yet, whether they'll get one or not. So it could be we can get a points deduction this season. It might be next season they start on -12, which would be a major issue for them straight off the bat for survival. But it does mean they get an extra season of Championship football. So you can look at it in two ways, realistically speaking. And then, of course, the other part Bonaldo put was Chelsea, Inter and Dortmund. They, of course, have had their kit reveals over the last couple of days. Which one do we feel like is the best?
Chelsea's kit looks awful.
As a kit aficionado, right, I like that it's smooth, if that makes sense. Like
it's very old-fashioned Chelsea's,
yeah.
I feel. Like, it's very simple. I'm a big Inter fan myself. It reminds me of the Nigeria kit. Proper, I like that. I really do. Dortmund's is strange. I feel like it'll take some getting used to.
I really like it.
But
the lightning on it. Nah,
I do like
the lightning on the Dortmund's really nice. What's Inter's?
Inter's is yeah, get it up because it is quite a nice kit. But in terms of the kit reveals, I know Chelsea did theirs digitally as well. They got a couple of YouTubers and people like that to advertise the kits. I think Road to Shore was one of them. Who was requested, which is very bizarre. I don't think he even supports them, but take take all the YouTubers and sponsorship deals you can get to advertise your kit. What do you think of the kit, Rowan? Now you've seen it.
That Inter Milan kit is very nice.
It is lovely.
If you rank them though, it goes Dortmund into Chelsea. I just love the lightning strike. I am a Dortmund fanboy.
That's true.
But yeah, that is a very nice kit.
I mean, Chris is putting in the chat here. Chelsea kit just been thrown on, no neat work, absolute mess.
No,
I don't know whether you agree with that.
I wouldn't take that because I think it's smooth. It's not. It doesn't have a lot on. It's just got. It's no patterns. Like you said, it's just like a throwback-ish.
Yeah, it's just a nice, simple blue kit. Like it's not. Admittedly, it's not very inspiring. It's a very uninspiring design. But I wouldn't say it's a mess. I'd just say it's very simplistic and I bet it was probably easy for the design team to go make a kit, and they just went, let's just put blue on it, to be honest. And
I think that's the thing with clubs, though. There's certain teams which you look at their kits, and that's what they are. They are simplistic kits. Take a team like Chelsea. They're never going to have stripes on their kit. They haven't had that for probably a long, long time. It's a very simple, simplistic blue design, but that's what Chelsea fans know and recognise. That's the brand of Chelsea. Just as much as an Arsenal kit, it is a simplistic red design.
And same with Liverpool. Do you remember that one year where they had a tyre track going past one of the... Do you remember it? The white, the black tyre... if you try and go too out the box, you very well may piss off your fan base because they'll go, well, what is this? Are we trying to commercialise our team? And then that it opens up another can of worms, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Keep to the design. It's just as much as if you change a club crest. I know that in Ligue 1, Bordeaux have just recently changed their crest, and it looks like they paid a graphic designer a £5 to make it. It looks awful. When you get used to a specific club badge, just like how Leeds had the same issue when they tried to rebrand, you could tell fans did not want that, and that went out the door very, very quick. And I feel like Bordeaux will have the same thing because you get so used to the brand, or whether it be a kit or whether it be a badge. Fans don't like change. People don't like change. I know Chris has put, doesn't really matter with kits anyway. It's the players who play in them, perform on the pitch, win trophies. Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
No.
Go on.
In terms of the actual football, of course. But the terms of success of a club and popularity, that Nigerian kit probably got Nigeria more support in the World Cup than they were going to get.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, though, this season, I think we have a beautiful kit, yet we are shit. So I'd much rather be good and have a crap kit. But I do get your point, as we said, for commercialisation and trying to bring people into your team. That's where owners and fans, there's a very big disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously owners sometimes run clubs as a business, and fans don't always see eye to eye with the decisions all the time. So, I mean, we all remember the Hull City Tigers debacle because it'll make us more commercialised. Yes, but you're taking away our over 100-year history, but it's all right.
Yeah, no, it really depends. And of course, Hull's owners just have been... Let's not talk about them. We can go down a long streak of stuff with Hull's owners. But I think the greatest way to end it is I'd like to just take a moment to pray to Morecambe fans that next season Burger King isn't your sponsor. Maybe you can get a better sponsor this time next season. Of course.
Was it Stevenage's, or what does Stevenage? Because they have a bad sponsor as well.
Go on. I think Rowan's searching them up. We'll have a look at it.
Crap sponsor.
Stevenage's Burger King.
There we go. It's Stevenage, not Morecambe.
Morecambe is.
Morecambe.
It's what we call it. I think they're Admiral. No, they're Anna Pure Recruitment.
Actually, I'm intrigued. Actually, Josh, Rowan, and what's your worst sponsor your club's ever had?
Blacks. They're an outdoor company.
Which has been your least? Because I'll be honest, I bought a kit, a Hull one, and it had flamingo land across the front. It's not the great.
Cool.
It's not. It's really not. You should have seen the kit.
I can't really say, to be honest. We've had the same sponsor for ages now. We don't really tend to change our main sponsor up, to be honest. I don't know about Manchester United.
I have no idea.
Actually, I remember.
I like the AIG.
Sportsdirect.com.
UK.
I had the proper shirt from the store, and it was a horrible. Do you know when you get a fake football shirt?
Yes.
It was that material on their official shirt,
Oh.
like what they were sticking the Sports Direct logo on. It just fit. But saying that, the Cabrini logo, beautiful. Like it was white, it just blended in with the blue perfectly.
Do you know what? Actually, think about it. I'm torn. It's either Flamingo Land or Cash Converters. They were both poor. They were really both poor.
I think quite early noughties, I think we had T-Mobile as a sponsor, but we're going really like way back. But I wouldn't say we've had one recently that's terrible. But coming back to the Chelsea point, Stu MC, welcome to the chat. He says Lampard keeping it basic to keep his players grounded, or harking it back to early Jose days. Good news for Chelsea. Then moving from a plastic club to another plastic club. Easy for him to settle in. We like a bit of drama in the chat. What we like. It's a shame there's no Chelsea fan in here. Yeah.
No,
I mean, maybe one of the Chelsea fans who are watching this back can reply to Stu and give a decent response there. But
It's a great website. I'm just going back to football kits because controversial. If you go to historicalkits.co.uk, it's got literally every single kit from going from now to the 1900s.
So there you go, Josh. You can tell me about 1933, that awful kit you had.
I'm looking at Oldham had JD Sports as their sponsor, and it's like vintage JD Sports. Looks very nice. We've actually had good sponsors.
I tell you what, for next week's podcast, if we all go on the website and we find out the worst kit, it's a bit of homework for you. Kieran D's probably thinking, fuck's sake. Homework for you for next week's podcast. Go on this website and find out what you feel is the worst kit your club has had since the 1900s. And then next week we'll come back on the podcast and we'll show it off. How about that? Well, I'll tell you what, one for the worst kit, one for the worst sponsor.
Well, how about that? I'll just do kit. It's fine. I'll just do kit.
There we go. Okay, so
I've already found it. That's disgusting.
Well, we'll do it. Save it for next week.
Yeah.
There we go. So the next week's podcast will show you what we feel like is our worst kits for our own clubs. So that'll be next week. You can find out. Be interested to see what horrible kits we've had in the past.
People let us know in the chat as well.
Yeah, definitely. And send them over on Twitter, of course. Our Twitter link, I think we've got the banner in there somewhere. You can send them over on Twitter. No, it's not there. Oh, there we go. It is at _top corner. You can send it on there and we'll show your kits off as well. And we'll see what horrible kits everybody's had in the past. We'll move on to our next section of the podcast. Actually, before that, Benal just quickly put, does Poundland sponsor anyone? Love that place. Wish I could visit, but I've been barred entry to Europe.
Oh, yes, Annie.
Oh, dear.
Oh, jeez.
Poundland's lovely.
He's from America, isn't he?
Yeah.
Do they not have a place called like Dollar Tree? Because I know when I went, there was a place
like
called
99-cent store.
Yeah, surely you've got a Dollar Tree.
Poundland, would it be?
Well, yeah, but not in America.
Dollarland.
Dollar World.
It's a great way to end it. Sorry, Benaldo. Maybe he'll be able to get back in Europe someday in the future. But we'll go on to the next section of the podcast, which is last week's games. And there were some crazy games last week. We had some big matches. We talked about, of course, the Bundesliga's last weekend went on, which we'll talk about a little bit later on for our score prediction table. No points to anybody who could predict who won it. Cough, cough. But we could talk about some big games. Premier League match that went on, Serie, big game, and, of course, a La Liga fixture that went on last night. So without further ado, we'll go straight away into the first section, a little sneak peek to later on. It's a bit of spoiler. Chelsea versus Manchester City. Now, we talked about this last week, of course. Big game, not just for Chelsea and Manchester City, but also the team behind them, Liverpool. As you can see in the background, big game for them. If Chelsea picked up a draw or a win, Liverpool, of course, was going to win the title. This game wasn't short of drama. And we had a certain someone in the background. If you are kind of watching on Twitch and that, there's a certain someone called Paul who I think was biting his nails a little bit more than we were watching this match, but it was full of drama. I think we could all agree on that one.
It was.
Yeah. I think personally, definitely by easy best game of the restart. It could be for me the best game of the season. I'm gonna throw it out there in the Premier League, best game of the season. Do you agree or disagree?
Since the restart or just in general?
No, going all year now. I changed my mind. Originally, I was going to say just the restart, but it clearly wins the restart one. But I think best season.
I don't know really, because you'd have to probably get up the table on that. I feel like there's probably a better game that I've seen this season. Like, it was a really good game, and there's lots to talk about from it, major talking points. But I feel like I've seen one that's better And that's probably just more the fact because of goals and things like that.
I don't know. I just feel like this one had everything. For me, like in football, it had everything. What do you think, KD? Are you agreeing with best game, or do you think there was
I don't think it's the best game. I think Wolves and Man City was the best game when it finished 3-2 at Wolves.
Oh, that's a good shout. That's a fair shout.
I do think was it this season the Liverpool Man City game where Fabinho hit it outside the box, or was that last season?
We watched it in the bar.
Yeah,
it was this season.
I think that's up there.
It is. You're right. But for me, there is some good games, to be fair.
And in terms of this game, of course, there was a lot to talk about, specifically in the second half. Christian Pulisic, who, of course, is a former Dortmund player. Let's put that into the mix there. Of course, Klopp, I think, managed him just before he left. But brilliant game. 2 major talking points in this match of opportunities that were right on the goal line. Of course, one of them did end up being a penalty because of Fernandinho quite blatantly handballing it. And then there was another one which I think was just a whisker off the line from Pulisic again in that match.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really, really close call.
You right, Kieran?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Sure.
You're right. Oh, God. But Manchester City, they didn't look at the races at all. Really, really poor game for them until the second half. I think the first half, Chelsea did really well. Then they came out and really started to hit Chelsea on the break. Now, there was a couple of good opportunities for them. I think Raheem Sterling had a chance just inside the box.
Yeah.
I think, which just went wide of the mark. So there were some good opportunities for City to win this. But of course, as I said beforehand, it was the case. Manchester City had to win this game just to delay Liverpool a little bit longer. And of course, they couldn't. And it's a big, big win for Chelsea. Big win. Of course, Manchester United, Wolves in the background, just slowly creeping up, getting a couple of victories here and there. It's getting really, really pressurising now for that top 4 spot.
Yeah.
Go on, you talk, Kieran.
Obviously, there's a few games tonight as well. Like Man United obviously won 3-0 yesterday. I think Wolves play tonight. I think they play tonight. Arsenal play tonight. Tottenham play tonight. Chelsea play tonight. There's a lot of teams that in that top 4 race that play tonight, and they need to pick up points. But just on Man City, I think that it just epitomises the season that they get beat again, because this season they have been arguably the biggest bottle jobs themselves, because they've gone away to teams that last season they'd have blown away, like Wolves, for example. If they played like they did last season, they'd have blown Wolves away. When we played them at the Etihad and at Old Trafford, they should have beat us both times. Chelsea, they should beat Chelsea on paper with the squad that they have, but I just don't know what's happened with Man City this year. I remember Kyle Walker saying after we beat him at the Etihad, he don't know what's happened. So much changed, because in his first season they were getting clean sheets like there's no tomorrow. But he said that so much changed, and for a player to come out and say something like that, it can't give you confidence in your team and your manager if you're coming out and saying, "Oh, I don't know what's changed."
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just got the table up now. They've lost 8 games this season. Of course, 2 of those are to Wolves. They've lost to Liverpool once. That could turn into 2 with the game tomorrow night. They've lost to Manchester United, I think, twice now. You've done the double, or you've done the treble over them this season, I think. And you've got a good chance to do the quadruple over them, which is crazy to think. If you'd have said that to a Man United fan, you'd have probably said that wouldn't happen at the start of the season.
I can tell you now that's not happening, because they'll beat us in final if they get to the final.
But it's a tough season for them.
Yeah, for me, it's that lack of Vincent Kompany. I truly believe it is. Like, he is a leader both on and off the pitch, and yes, obviously with the injury. Chrissy Welch, I tell you what, you read me mind, son, read me mind. But I do think it's a lack of Vincent Kompany, because last year, again, they shouldn't have really won the league last year, but they dragged themselves in some incredible form to turn around that deficit. And this year, they were never in the shout. And I mean, Liverpool have lost 2 league matches in 2 seasons so far. Man City lost 8 in 1. So for me, without Vinny Kompany, and now they're going to lose David Silva, that old guard that they had, which was so good. Aguero's going to leave eventually because he's trying to he'll get Jesus in there eventually, but that old guard's kind of leaving. It's time for some other players to step up. But I've got to give credit to Kyle Walker, his recovery ability, and to have the pace he does. And that was the guy who blocked it off the line. That was unbelievable because that looked dead to rights to go in. But yeah, I just think, go on.
With City, I think they've got a major problem when Aguero eventually leaves, because as good as Gabriel Jesus is, he won't get you 30 goals a season like Sergio Aguero will. There's going to be a lack of goals in that side. Like, we've seen it already. They don't score enough already when Sergio Aguero's not on the pitch. Like, against Newcastle, they even struggled to score. I know they won 2-0 and they were comfortable, but they should have won about 8 or 9-0. That's the thing. Like, unless they replace Sergio Aguero, and there is another Argentine striker that they could use to replace him.
Higuain?
No, yes.
I was thinking Carlos Tevez.
Bring him back.
They could get Lautaro Martinez. He's a very similar player to Sergio Aguero in the similar build, the similar play style. I think he'd suit Man City.
I was going to say as well, the important thing to factor in is also when Aguero leaves, because, of course, it's still going on. There is no information yet on whether Manchester City's ban is upheld or whether it's going on. And the important thing is we know Aguero won't leave next season, but it depends on what happens, because if Aguero leaves, let's say the season after, and they have got a ban, then it's going to be very tricky for them to convince a top striker to come in, not necessarily straight away, but maybe the season after. But in that specific moment, they might have a problem on their hands of getting a top dog to come in without Champions League football.
He said he didn't want to leave without winning the Champions League. And over how they've not won the Champions League, how they've barely even made it to a semi-final, is beyond me. With how much money they've pumped in, how many great players they've had, I just don't know how it's. What do you think their chances are of winning it this year? Because for some reason in the Champions League, Man City are not the same force they are in the Premier League, and they've been an even weaker force in the Premier League this year. How do you rate their chances in the Champions League?
I think their chances are higher just because they're not competing for a league title like a lot of the bigger teams are. Still, I know Barca and Real are still, because their second leg still needs to be played, don't they? Cities.
Yeah.
They're still competing for a league title. In Italy, is it still up in the air?
Very slightly. Juventus are 4 points ahead of Lazio, but Inter Milan are out of it now. So I would say
there's only one team you really have to worry about because they've got no competition. That's Bayern, just because their league's over and done with. They're
and
probably
PSG.
Gonna have a couple... Oh yeah, I forgot about. I always forget about Ligue 1. Like their leagues are over and done with. PSG have had how long? How long will have they had off now just to practice and train for the Champions League?
I think the season got called off towards the end of March, April. So April, May, June, July. They'll have had about 4 to 5 months of training before the games actually kick off in August.
Like that's a long time.
Yeah, I don't expect them to come back and be up to par. We saw how slow the return of the Premier League was in the first couple of weeks, and the return of the Bundesliga wasn't much different. And I feel like people will be able to play at such a higher tempo compared to a PSG. I know they've got a lot of rest, but playing practice games is not the same as playing a Champions League fixture. But I just don't know, because Man City just can't seem to win the Champions League.
It's a shame, because I was thinking for a team like PSG, of course, because you've had so long out, there's only so many practice games you could do. But I think what would have been a great idea, and I know it can't work because of all the coronavirus stuff, but it would have been great if they could have had friendlies against some of the bigger Bundesliga teams. So now the season's finished. Of course, Bayern are still going to be realistically training ahead of the Champions League. They've got the DFB Pokal final coming up. I think that's on Thursday night against Leverkusen. Big game, that one. So it'd been cool if it was able to have a couple of friendlies against teams like Dortmund and that, because of course they're going to go on holidays and that soon, but there's still some of these German clubs actually in competitions, like Leverkusen themselves. They're still in the Europa League. So it'd be nice if maybe some of the German and French clubs could have kind of interlinked together and done some of these, not necessarily all out, smash and grab friendly type things, just games to get the fitness going, fitness levels going.
Is there any more French teams left in any of the international tournaments?
There is. Lyon are still in it as well.
Yeah. So
they've got to play Juventus, and they've got a 1-0 lead against Juventus.
So they could go play against them, because I'm sure Lyon will be training.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. And I think, to be
else.
fair, the majority of Ligue 1 clubs will probably not really have much of a holiday this time and start training, because I think their season's starting earlier to make up for the amount of course, lost time we've had for the previous season. So as far as I'm aware, their season will start just as the Champions League and Europa League tournament starts as well. So it does get a bit messy for PSG.
I just don't know whether it's some of these teams. Who do you think are the favourites? I'm leaning more now towards Bayern Munich, because the way they looked on the restart, they looked unstoppable.
I think Real Madrid are going to pull it back and win it. There's a grittiness about this Real Madrid side, and we'll talk about them later on, because we're going to be talking about their title run. But ever since Barcelona took a foothold of the league, kind of got a couple of points difference between them, there's a very big grittiness about them, and I just feel like this season Zidane wants to go all out and win every last trophy he can possibly get. Of course, they've got to come back in that leg as well against City, but I do feel like they've got a good chance to do it.
I just think with the league, drinking orange juice. I think just with the league so close, there is always going to be something in the back of the head that says we've still got the league to worry about, because the league's not over and done with. And with Bayern and PSG, there are no worries. Maybe not PSG, but Bayern, they've played consistent games. They will have a bit of a break before the Champions League comes back. But
won't the league be finished?
I'm going to throw a spanner into the works. Real Madrid will have had just less than a month of no football. The league finishes on July the 17th.
Yeah.
And as of right now, Real Madrid 1 point ahead of Barcelona, but they've got a game in hand as well, which is the game that they're going to be playing, I think, tonight. So they could go 4 points ahead of Barca, which doesn't sound like a lot, but with the complexion of the league, and I talked about it on the watch-along I did yesterday, the fixtures that both sides have got left, they've got quite a lot of teams at the bottom of the table, which, take the Premier League, for example. Bottom teams are still hard to beat, but compare them to La Liga. Probably for every 10 matches you play, the bottom team wins 1, if they're very lucky. So it's going to be interesting, because we'll talk a lot more about the Champions League when it gets closer towards August. We've got the draw coming up, which we'll talk a little bit about that as well a little bit later on in the podcast. It'd be great to see who faces who in the next round, and then we can really start to get an idea of the complexion of how the Champions League is going to work and which teams we feel like have got a good chance of going all the way and winning it. The last point I'm going to quickly just jump in is this is about Liverpool, of course. Now they've won the title, thanks to Chelsea. But now, what I wonder now is, do Liverpool take their senior team off from starting and let the younger players play as they've won? I think it'd be right to hold players' health and form with subs to avoid injury.
I think they want to break a record.
Yeah.
I think they want to get the highest points total, or they want to get like some sort of record. I mean, they've got a record. I think they're the latest team ever to win it. So congratulations, you won it. But I think they want, because let's be fair, City have that 100-point magical thing that they hold on to. So I think Liverpool would want to surpass that and just smash another record. And I think they possibly can, but it's hard to keep the motivation when you've already won the league, I think, sometimes. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does put in a Curtis Jones, a Nico Williams, some players, but intersperse them. We're not playing Everton when they put out their under-12s and still won. But I think he'll put a few in that get a bit more game time than the usual. Minamino, I think, will become more prominent now because they don't really need to win games, and he's not really adapted yet to life in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's a good time to get some specifically the new signing of January in there. Just let him have a bit of a go, and if he doesn't do well, who cares? They've won the title. I don't think, as much as they want the 100 points, I think Liverpool fans are just happy enough that they've finally got a title under their belt. So if they don't get that 100 points tally, I don't think there'll be many fans that really care.
They've got 3 tough fixtures, maybe 2. They've got obviously City tomorrow, and then they've got Villa, Brighton and Burnley, all winnable games. Then they've got Arsenal. That was my maybe, because It's Arsenal.
Yeah,
And then
Arsenal.
you've got Chelsea, which will be a tough game. Then you've got Newcastle end of the season, which should be winnable.
I
So
mean,
I think even with a weaker side, they could win 5
those,
of their games.
those games against the small teams, though, those small teams need points. Like Villa need points. Brighton, who they play in a few days, need points. A lot of teams down there now, like it's getting very tight down there. Like Brighton are only 6 points off. I think it's Bournemouth in 18th. Villa, obviously, they're probably going to go down. They need points. Norwich are probably already down. It's getting very tight down there at the bottom of the league.
But
Villa have got very, very, very tough fixtures. They've still got to play Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, pretty much the majority of the top 6.
Yeah, they've got players as well.
Which is a very, very tough ask for them to survive with the fixtures left.
Like you said, loud, they need to get points, but look how you dispatched Brighton last night. I've no offense, Kieran, but I think, well, it's not unfair. Liverpool are better than you.
Oh yeah.
So surely they're not youngsters, but a blend.
But for Brighton, go on.
I just want to say, Man United blew them apart, but for me, Brighton looked shocking. I don't know what you thought, Kieran, but they looked crap.
Maybe we made them look crap. No,
they were slow. I mean, Trossard was good. Trossard looked okay, but that wasn't. I don't feel these teams, when they've got to pick up points, I think you can't ask them to play at that level against the big teams every week. Go on, Kieran. Sorry, you carry on.
I can't remember what I was going to say. So, for Brighton, I think for Brighton, it's not as urgent because
yeah,
that 6 point gap is enough. I think personally, because I can't see Villa, Bournemouth winning a game, playing like they are at the minute, because they're just not playing well at all. They look awful, especially Aston Villa. With that squad that they've got, they should be comfortable, like just in front of the relegation pack where Southampton are, Newcastle even. They should be up there. They've got such a good team, but I just don't know what happened. Is it Dean Smith? Is it the players not performing to their best? I don't know.
Is it a similar thing to Fulham?
It could be.
But then again, I look at that team and they don't play that many new signings. Like the back four, Courtney House was there last year anyway. Only Matt Target, I think, was the other one that was introduced out of that back. And a new goalkeeper, of course. And goalkeeper, cool.
If you splash in 10 million on Douglas Luiz and then you get in Trezeguet as well, you get in Alice Samatta, there's a lot of players in there that they sign in to try and keep them up. And to be honest, none of them have really come out, have they? They've not really shone. And like Ali Samatta, maybe he's got a few goals here and there, but he's not starting ahead of Keenan Davis, who's a teenager. No disrespect to Keenan Davis, but you know.
No, I get what you mean.
And of course, Wesley was out, and I think is he still out or is he back now? Because I know he was out for a couple of months.
Yeah, he's still out.
Still out injured, so they lost another one of the big players there.
Who is starting that they bought apart from Douglas Luiz, who starts every game?
Well, Trezeguet doesn't start.
No, Trezeguet's on bench all the time. I mean,
Tyrone Mings, who they signed permanently, he starts.
But he was there last year, and so was Courtney House.
Pepe Reina doesn't even start, does he?
No, they keep shifting between Heaton and Pepe Reina, so it's...
Well, it's Nyland, isn't it, at the moment? And
I was going to say, I think Pepe Reina joined and got injured straight away.
What a surprise.
They've had a rotten bit of luck, to be fair, in terms of the goalkeeper situation. I think they're on like the 4th choice goalkeeper at this point. But it's poor.
It is poor. I mean, Chris is poor. This is going back to the 100 points thing. Of course, Chris being Liverpool fan, he says, we may as well go for 100 points record. Got nothing else to play for. If we were in the Champions League, then you'd understand youngsters playing in the league. I think that sums it up perfectly. Of course, they've got nothing else really to play for now. They've got the titles they need. They've got no other competitions they're in. You might as well just make the most of the rest of the season and enjoy it. I mean, no doubt the Newcastle-Liverpool game will feel like a party at the end of the season, especially if Newcastle's owner situation gets sorted out in the near future. But we'll move on to the next game now. We're going to shift over from the Premier League to Italy. And, well, you was going to say that the previous game was one of the games of the season in the Premier League. Yeah, this was one of the games of the season in Serie A. Now, we talked about this last week, that the title race was very, very close in Italy right now. Lazio, just a point or two behind Juventus. Atalanta trying to push forward for the Champions League spots. And this game did not disappoint in the slightest. Now, I watched the game. I don't know if anybody else did.
I caught the highlights.
Liverpool.
Yeah, no, I think there was another good game at the same time. But what a crazy, crazy game this was. 2-0, Lazio were to the good just before the half an hour mark. De Roon scored an own goal. You might have seen he put something up on Twitter, which was very funny. Pretty much Atalanta fans just abusing him for conceding the early goal. And then Milinkovic-Savic scored 6 minutes later, and it was an absolute screamer. Just typical Milinkovic-Savic, smashes it outside the box, hits it with ridiculous pace and power, goes into the back of the net. And you think to yourself, in a game like this, there could be an opportunity for more goals and this to get very dirty. But Atalanta, we know what they're like. They're the highest scorers in Serie this season. In fact, fun fact for you, they scored 77 goals last season. They've already broke that this season with plenty of games left to spare. Gosens scored a great equaliser in the 38th minute to make it, to make it 2-1. Then the equaliser came from Malinovsky, who's been struggling a lot at Atalanta this season, not really getting much game time. He scored a really, really good goal. And then very, very questionable goalkeeping from Strakosha for the winner from Palomino. He came rushing out of his box from the corner. Palomino was in acres of space with no one marking him. And it's the easiest header I think the Argentine will ever get in his career. And it cost them the game. Looking stats-wise, Atalanta had 21 shots, 9 on target. Lazio had 6 shots, 3 on target. They only had pretty much 1 shot in the second half, which just proves how poor they played. And it's a big, big loss for them because it now means they are currently, as it stands, 4 points behind Juventus, who did play last night and got themselves a win. Is this title race, it's not specifically over yet, because 4 points isn't a massive amount. But are we starting to see Juventus just slowly creep away with it?
Yeah. I'd say so.
It's kind of what we said last week. I think we said last week that we won't be calling this a title race for very long. And I don't know if you saw Juventus last night, but my word, what a trio of goals that was. I don't know if you saw it or not, but if you can, go check it out, because the trio of goals they scored, do you remember we were talking, I think, Kieran, that they looked poor in the cup?
Yeah.
But since they came back, and last night to me, yes, they were against a really poor, I think was it Torino or was it Genoa or something like
Genoa.
that? That was it then. A really poor side, but that some of the football they were playing, Dybala's close control, everyone kind of looks back to their best. So I don't see this being a title race for much longer.
And just looking at how they've been this season, they haven't lost a game in Serie A since February. That was a 2-1 loss against Verona quite some time ago. They've got some good fixtures coming up. We're going to talk about one of them later. On Saturday, they've got the Turin derby versus Torino. The game we're going to talk about later, Milan versus Juventus. That's going to be a very interesting one. When you look at the actual games they've got left, they've still got some very big fixtures, Juventus. They've got to play, of course, the Turin derby on Saturday, Milan on Tuesday. Next Saturday, they've got Atalanta, which will be a very tricky fixture. They've still actually got to play Lazio and Roma as well. So they have got some very big fixtures still left to play. And 4 points separate first and second. As for Inter Milan, well, the title race for them is now well and truly over. 11 points away from Juventus, although they have got a game in hand, but it just looks way too far away for them. But for Atalanta, well, they're looking great right now. 4th place, 57 points. They are 9 points ahead of 5th place Roma. They've scored 14 goals more than anyone has in the rest of the league, with a goal difference of 41. They look absolutely solid right now. And it's good to see. Of course, they actually won again last night by the exact same score, 3-2. And they beat Udinese, so another good victory for them. They do seem to be steamrolling on in the league. But of course, as I said, we'll talk about Juventus in a little bit of a moment's time. They're going to play Milan in a couple of days, so we'll talk about that match. But we'll move on to the last week result before we talk about the Bundesliga games. The game that happened last night, Barcelona-Atletico Madrid. Now, of course, if you watched the watch-along last night, you'll have seen that this was a very controversial game of football for the goals that were scored. Of course, Barcelona had to go and win this game with Real Madrid sat in first place now because of the draw. But originally, Barcelona were in a great position to go top. They actually took the lead in this game. They made it 1-0. Really looked like they were going to go for it, looked comfortable. Atletico Madrid didn't really give them many chances until Yannick Ferreira Carrasco, who had a great game, got the first penalty of the match. In fact, talk about the first goal. It was Diego Costa own goal. If you haven't seen it, it comes from a corner in the 11th minute where Lionel Messi nutmegs Diego Costa. It goes through his legs and into the back of the net.
It's a great finish.
It sounds crazy, but it's a great finish.
Well, Diego Costa just backheels it into his own net.
It kind of comes off his arse, to put it nicely. It kind of just bounces off his arse and goes in, and it wasn't his day, to put it very nicely, because, as I said, Yannick Ferreira Carrasco got the first penalty of the game. Diego Costa went to go and take it, and it was just a terrible, terrible penalty. Ter Stegen saved it. But he came off his line before he kicked the ball, so he got retaken again, which there was no, complaints about that. Absolutely spot on, great refereeing decision. Dispatched away by Saul, who took it this time. 1-1, 19th minute. Put the game in a really interesting position. You thought to yourself, there's going to be more goals in this, and there certainly was. He went to half time, 1-1, looking good. 5 minutes into the second half, Barcelona then got a penalty of their own. Felipe tackling, I think it was Semedo. And it was a little bit interesting whether it was actually a penalty or not, because the contact was... It depends on your opinion, because one of his feet was inside the box. One of them was outside of the box. And I think the foot that got tackled was outside of the box. So a little bit controversial in the penalty. But Messi penenkered it, got his 700th goal of his career, which is unbelievable when you think about it. And what a way to get his 700th goal.
I love the audacity there. You won all against, not a title decider, but one of the best teams in Spain. You're about to take your 700th goal. Sod it, we're against one of the best goalkeepers. We'll just Panenka it. Why not?
It's unbelievable, because you think of the stature of Oblak being one of the greatest keepers in world football right now. To go and do that for your 700th goal, what a way to get it. But that's where the drama didn't end, because we get to 12 minutes later, Atletico Madrid get another penalty again, this time from Yannick Carrasco once again. Now, if you haven't seen the second penalty decision made by the referee, it's one of the worst refereeing decisions I think I've seen this season. Semedo,
for a while,
isn't necessarily, and I don't know if you guys have seen the decision, Semedo's not necessarily close to him. There's quite a distance from each other. And the way that the referee is, you could quite clearly see that Carrasco has accidentally tripped himself up. I don't know whether you'd agree or not.
I can link it in chat, 2 seconds, you can see it.
The only thing I saw when I first watched it was maybe, do you know when you're running against someone and they clip your ankles and then you kick yourself as you fall over? Maybe that's what I first thought, but I've not looked it back to, kind of see if there was that contact. But that's the only way I could see in a pen.
If you go on 107 on that video I've linked, you'll be able to see it. It's one of the strange... He clearly kicks. Semedo's a good 40... I'm trying to think in terms of... He's like 45 centimetres away from him.
Yeah.
Semedo's not even sticking out a foot or anything to go for a tackle.
When you look at it back, they just kept showing it last night when I was watching it over and over again. And when I saw it at first, I thought, yeah, no, maybe he's clipped him. If you watch it back, he's nowhere near him to clip Carrasco. He's literally just a case of Carrasco's just accidentally clipped the back of his foot and he falls down. Semedo, which is weird because Semedo didn't actually protest the decision, which I thought was a bit odd. I'd have thought maybe, the Barca players would have gone swarming around the ref, but they didn't really do it to, there was the odd player or two, of course, protesting, as you'd expect.
That is never a penalty, that.
It's never a penalty.
Never a penalty, that.
Josh, did you think, for me, that wasn't a penalty, but I don't think the Felipe one was either.
I don't think it was. I think, as I said, the contact of Semedo's foot was outside of the box. Now, I'd understand if both feet were inside the box, then it's absolutely a stonewall penalty, 100%. Really? But the problem is, is because there's a bit of a discrepancy between him being inside the box and outside of the box at the initial point of the tackle. I think it should have been a free kick, not penalty. But if it was inside the box, I think it'd have been a penalty.
I don't think there was enough contact for a penalty. Like, there is... I think it's a toe. Obviously, Semedo's going to go down because he's felt a slight touch, but it's all, like, a personal preference, in it. But for me, there's not enough contact there where you would go down as Semedo did.
Yeah, I think honestly it should have just been the first penalty, and there shouldn't have been another penalty after that. I don't really understand why. The ref just must have loved pointing to that spot. I don't know.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, 3 penalties in the game, and there was half an hour left as it was at 2-2. You thought maybe one of these sides would get the winner, but there wasn't a winner, and it's a big, big loss for Barcelona in terms of not getting the 3 points, because now it means that Real Madrid are back on top in the league by a point. Real Madrid on 71 points, Barcelona on 70. But they've also got a game in hand, which is against Athletic Bilbao, which we'll talk about that a little bit later on, because we haven't actually really talked about Real Madrid since La Liga's come back. And they're in a great position now to really put a marker on the rest of the league and say, we're going to take the title home for the first time in 3 years. Big, big result. An even bigger result for Atletico Madrid, because it now puts them 7 points away from dropping out of the Champions League spots.
It's one of them. They just draw, don't they? I think we said it last week. They don't lose. They win on odd occasions, but they just draw all the time. And I think me and you guys know, Lewis, we were talking yesterday, and if you was going to put a bet on this game, whenever Atletico play, it's just a safe thing to say draw, because that's all they do.
14 draws out of 33 this season. That is the most draws in the entire of the league, apart from Valladolid in 14th. And that's what's cost them so many points. You look at Real Madrid and Barcelona, they've drawn 7 and 8 apiece. So you can see where the problem is in terms of whether Atletico Madrid would want to push on and try and reach for the title. They've just drawn way too many games, and it's cost them big time. But this one didn't, of course, and it's cost Barca, because they've got some good fixtures still to come. They've got a great game on Sunday against Villarreal at 9 o'clock, who are looking very, very hungry to try and just slightly work their way into the top 4. It's a tough ask, but there's a couple of games left this season for them to do that. And then as for Real Madrid, well, they've got that game in hand, and they really only have to play a lot of the bottom sides after this. So the La Liga title looks like it's going to be shifting to the Los Blancos instead of Barcelona. I was going to ask as well, you might have heard in the news, Quique Setién, the manager, could get the sack if he doesn't win the Champions League. Do you agree that he should get the sack or not if they don't win the Champions League or the title?
No, shouldn't get the sack.
Nothing should be. Your firing should never be based on the result of. Sorry, not the results, because that is football. In terms of winning silverware, because you could have the best season, and then one day that team could be a smidge better than you, and for you to get the sack is not fair. I don't know, because as a club you wanting to win the most trophies you can, and if the club genuinely believes that this manager can't do it, sack him. But I just, in football, I don't think it should be based whether if you get to a final and you lose by 1 goal, or if you get trounced, you've got to a Champions League final, you've got further in the competition than 99% of the teams, apart from like the one who haven't made it.
It's so different. It's so weird how these teams get judged. Like PSG, if you don't win Europe, that's it. It's not enough to win the league title. For example, like Barcelona and Real Madrid, it's not enough to win a couple of La Ligas, and that's just really bizarre. Whereas let's be fair, there's more of an argument for Diego Simeone to be sacked, because he's not. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think personally he deserves it, but I wouldn't be surprised, because that's just the way these teams are ran sometimes. If you don't win the biggest tournaments, again, it's one of them. Pep might have been sacked because he didn't win the league, and he might not win thingy, but you're not going to sack him, are you? Because it's just different teams, different philosophies. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'd say no.
Yeah, it's a very. I do think Spanish teams work a lot differently. to other teams across football in how they kind of have a perspective on their managers and how they run clubs. Like Valencia, for example, they sacked their manager a couple of days ago. They've just brought in a new manager who is back for the 6th time at the club. I'd like to just quickly play a game of, can you guess how many games he's actually managed in those 6 appearances as a manager?
I'm going to go with
17.
No, a little bit higher.
All right,
Yeah.
43.
A little bit lower.
32.
A little bit higher.
37.
Just one off. 36 games he's managed in 6 appearances
That's poor,
as a
innit?
manager. Yeah,
That-
it's awful.
Literally 6 games per appointment. So
Yeah.
in 6 weeks' time, I cannot be awake to announcing the new Valencia manager live on.
It's
top couple.
that's the madness, though, isn't it? That's the madness of La Liga. They just pick and choose when managers go. You know, I mean, for a club in 8th, Valencia, you'd expect them to be higher anyway. But to just keep reappointing the same manager over and over and over again, you'd think maybe they'd want to go down a very different route because they're not in a position of struggle. Neither are they really in a position of where they're doing amazing. 46 points in 8th. They've got a lot of work to do, but 6 points and they're back in the Europa League spots again. So it's crazy in Spain. It's very confusing. But we're going to move on to the last section of last week's results. Of course, you might be aware that we do have our Bundesliga score predictions. Now the season is over and it's finished. We do have to, unfortunately, look at the table and find out who's won this competition. Now, last week, we had 4 games that we predicted. 2 of the games were for the Champions League teams. 2 of the games were for the relegation teams. They were Union Berlin versus Dusseldorf, Werder Bremen versus Cologne, Gladbach versus Hertha Berlin, and Leverkusen versus Mainz. Now, we already said at the start of the podcast that nobody would have predicted Werder Bremen versus Cologne. You were absolutely wrong. Because nobody did. No one was even close.
Oh, don't do that to me.
I thought you off there. Maybe I was going to say Rowan might have guessed it. But it was the one we'd expect Rowan to go for it.
Rowan's never guessed the score correct. Rowan, I think I've only guessed 2 correct in our time of doing predictions. And when did we start? January?
I think we started them quite a while ago, didn't we?
Yeah, 2 correct in nearly 12 weeks. No, longer than that. 24.
Pretty much.
Wasn't it? Didn't it debut with the podcast? I'm pretty sure. Prediction.
Well, if it did, that's nearly 9 months.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Don't look at it in that way, Rowan. But I am going to give you a little bit of positive news. Nobody got any predictions correct. However, it's bad news because it means that top of the table and the winner of the Bundesliga score prediction table is Kieran D with the 9 points. That big point he picked up in the previous episode means that really did decide how this league was going to run. In terms of predictions, there wasn't really many close ones at all. I think the closest one would have been the Gladbach game, I think. I'm just trying to check down the results here. To be honest, actually, I wouldn't say there was really anybody who was majorly close. I predicted 2-0 to Union Berlin against Dusseldorf. That game ended 3-0. That was the closest for that one. Werder Bremen versus Cologne. I wouldn't really say anybody was remotely close. Gladbach Hertha Berlin, I would say the closest for that one. Don't think anybody was really close either. Leverkusen versus Mainz ended 1-0 Leverkusen. Can't say that. Mainz didn't obviously get any points. Rowan said 1-0 Mainz. I said 2-1 Mainz. KL said 4-0 Leverkusen. And KD said 2-1 Leverkusen. So I don't think anybody was even remotely close there. So no points on the board for anyone, but well done, Kieran D. Round of applause. You have won the bragging rights of the score prediction table. I don't hear anybody else clapping, so I think there's a little bit of disappointment from the rest of the boys. But me and Rowan...
No, I gave a clap there. Excuse me.
Peace.
He's absolutely smashed
I'd like to say
it.
that it's absolutely rigged. Because I don't like Josh. We've talked about this.
Now, is he by any chance going to say about the losses?
Of course it's his losses, because I look like I'm absolutely shit, which I am.
I mean, you
I'm
have right in like.
I'm dog awful at predictions, but that makes me look even worse.
That's making
honestly,
you look better. You only lost 9.
I was about to say we could make it look worse and put 2 in 9 months, but instead
It looks like I finished dead last on the table. I finished joint last.
But you did.
Yeah.
You finished last.
Yeah,
No,
to be
I finished
fair,
joint last.
You finished last.
We've done the same amount of predictions.
You've just got to take the L, Rowan. You've just got to take the L.
No. Kieran D, three wins, 7 losses. That's 10. Kieran L, 2 wins, 8 losses. Surprisingly again, Josh, that's 10.
10.
Rowan,
Yep.
1 win, 9 losses, 10. Now, to my knowledge, you've been on every single podcast.
Yep.
So, why the fuck do you have played one less game than us?
Rowan, just take the L. Just
I'm not having it.
Gaming, I'm not postponed.
just take the L.
Game in my ass, thank you.
He's not happy with it, but I know Rowan will be happy because you can join the Athletic today. Of course, there is 50% off your annual subscription and a 7-day free trial as always. I just use that to quickly move on. I'm not going to lie. I've got to save my ass there. You can get 50% off your annual subscription and a 7-day free trial. They've got a world-class team of writers, including Oliver Kay and Raphael Honigstein. Of course, he'll be starting to prepare ahead of the next season. And of course, just something to very quickly talk about. No doubt they will do a piece about Leroy Sané moving to Bayern. What do we think about that deal? Very quickly.
It's a great deal.
Great deal.
It's
I love it. So, no doubt, I think Raphael Honigstein will probably make a piece about Leroy Sané moving to Bayern, how that will affect the team. So, keep your eyes out for that. But if you are into different sports, maybe into your NFL, you're into your combat sports, maybe you even like your WWE. They've got all the content on there for you, and you can join us today on The Athletic. It's theathletic.co.uk/sports corner. The link is in the description. They've got some great content on there, and of course, we've still got plenty more football and plenty more in the sporting world to come. I know, of course. Is it Fight Island starting soon?
It is. It is.
So that's starting up.
It's in July. I think it might, because there's 3 cards in a week in July. So I am very excited for And if you have seen the picture of Fight Island, it is literally an octagon on a beach. That's literally what it is.
So they could have done it in Skegness, but no doubt there'll be build up for that on The Athletic. And of course, there's a lot going on in WWE as well. I know there's something going on tonight as well. So no doubt they'll probably talk about all of the stuff in WWE on the website. So of course, link is in the description as always for that. So we're now going to move on to this week's fixtures. There's some great fixtures going on this week. Now, for the Premier League, I could have picked out the quite blatantly obvious picture of the match that's going on between Manchester City and Liverpool. There's all the build-up towards it of the Guard of Honour and everything going on like that. But I thought I'd pick a different match because realistically speaking, on paper, there's nothing to play for. Now, I picked out Everton versus Leicester City because if there's any team that is bottling it right now, and we'll have shout for bottler of the season, it's Leicester City. Well done. They have struggled since the Premier League has come back. Currently sat in 3rd in the league on 55 points. They've got a game in hand over the rest of the teams around them. But when you look at it, it's nail-biting times if you are a Leicester City fan. They're in 3rd, 55 points. Chelsea in 4th on 54 points. As for Manchester United and Wolves, of course, they played a game in hand already, which was the games Manchester United, of course, played last night. Great 3-0 win against Brighton. They're on 52 points. Now, we've talked about the Europa League and the Champions League race a lot over this last couple of weeks. But we've got to move a little bit further down the table now because it's so tight in the league. We're going to move a little bit past Wolves. We're going to drop down to the places between 7th and 12th. So we've got Tottenham on 45 points in 7th. We've got Burnley on 45 points in 8th, who've already played a game in hand because they played Crystal Palace. Great victory for them. 9th, we've got Sheffield United on 44 points, which they're slowly starting to drop down the league. 10th, we've got Arsenal on 43 points. Palace are on 42 points, but they've already played a game in hand. Then we've got Everton in 12th. Now, Carlo Ancelotti, of course, came in January. Big signing for Everton. Maybe a little bit before that, might have been December time. Great manager of a caliber of great experience. Former Bayern, former PSG, former Real Madrid. He's been everywhere, and we know what he's like. Now, they're sat on 41 points, but they don't seem to be moving anywhere. They seem to have been stuck towards this kind of 10th to 13th position for the last couple of weeks. This is a big game for them because they've still got to play Wolves, they've still got to play Sheffield United, and they've still got to play Tottenham. Everton will be desperate to get back into the Europa League, just as much as Leicester will be desperate to get into the Champions League. Is this the opportunity for Everton to really put a dent in Leicester City's season and try and push for the Europa League? What are we thinking for this fixture?
I think this has got a draw written all over it. Like Welch and Bernardo have got. Everton have not scored a goal since. They've scored one goal, since the restart. And they've played. Well, they have played the top team and the bottom team, but for me, they just don't look exciting to watch. I know Carlo Ancelotti is a brilliant manager, and it's probably just the rustiness of coming back since they've only just played 2 games. But they do not look anywhere near that side that after Christmas came back and was arguably maybe one of the favourites to get the Europa League the way they were playing. I think. Am I right to make my prediction, or does anybody want to say something?
No, you go ahead. We'll probably talk.
I think it's going to be 0-0.
0-0 draw. What are you feeling? Feeling, Kieran now? I know obviously you're a big Dominic Calvert-Lewin fan.
I am. He's England's number 9. He's DCL. But, for me, I think, to be fair, Carlo Ancelotti's done a fantastic job because Marco Silva, they were going nowhere under him. They were just poor, and as much as I love Marco Silva, former Hull City legend, manager, they just were going nowhere. And Ancelotti will, I think, take this Everton team to the Europa League because he's that good of a manager. But I agree that since the restart, they aren't looked the best, but not many teams have. I'd say it's been Wolves, Chelsea, and United have all looked outstanding, and the rest have looked all right. Even Liverpool have looked all right, apart from their 4-0 thrashing of Crystal Palace. So I'm actually going to lean towards England's number 9, and I'm going to go 1-1 because I think he'll score. But
a 1-1 draw. Rowan, what are you feeling for this one?
Both teams haven't looked amazing, but Leicester are where they are now because of how they played before. I think they both got 1 win under the belt since the restart. That's a lie. Do I go Everton now?
Leicester haven't won a game since they come back. A 1-1 draw against Watford, a 0-0 draw against Brighton, and of course the FA Cup, they lost 1-0 to Chelsea.
I'm going to go 1-0 Leicester just so we've all gotten different results.
1-0 Leicester?
Yeah. Did you see the Carlo Ancelotti being asked about Luke Garbutt? And he went, who?
Yeah.
Which was poor Luke Garbutt. But he took it in. He took it the best.
You can tell with the tweet, it's the picture. You know, the picture of the guy where he's crying, but he's got the mask of him smiling. That is the depiction of Luke Garbutt after Carlo Ancelotti's comments. But I know we always talk about it, but right now, if you're a Man United fan or a Wolves fan, this is looking at a really, really good time as a fan of one of those clubs because both teams are flying. Even Chelsea, to a certain extent, have looked all right in games. They're picking up wins as they go along. Great win against Man City. Not the most convincing win against Villa, but it's a win at the end of the day. But as a United and a Wolves fan, there is a real opportunity here to not just knock Leicester off their perch, but to also knock Chelsea off their perch as well.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you feel the same or not, but you won last night 3-0 against Brighton. Great result. Do you think this could be a really good home run for United and Wolves?
I think both teams look a bit similar, don't they? But the good thing I think for us is if we want to get third is that our goal difference is a little bit better than Wolves. Wolves don't really beat teams 3 or 4-0, whereas we have been beating teams 3 or 4-0. Fair play to Wolves; they always grind out the results. That's why they are where they are. They do deserve to be in Europe next season for sure. Maybe the Champions League, maybe the Europa League, whatever. But for me, I just can't see any way. I don't know what it is about Leicester, but they just do not look as convincing as they did earlier on in the season when they were beating teams 3-1, 4-1. They were smashing goals, and Jamie Vardy looks a shadow of the player that he once was. I don't know what's happened to him, but you're right. It is a good time to be a Man United or Wolves fan.
It's looking just really good in terms of points. You both keep winning. You both look, as Kevin Al said, as the 2 really good sides that have come into this Premier League since the break kicked off. and you just keep getting points. And as for the gap between Wolves and Tottenham, remember, there is the opportunity here that if one of the major sides who do get into Europe win the FA Cup, it means that the positions of the Europa League football can actually drop down to 8th place, which as it stands would go to Burnley, which would be crazy. Burnley back in Europe again. We like to see that.
European tour.
Yes! Sorry, I've just read the comment from Bernardo. Guess what's coming back on July the 16th?
The A-League.
It's Mitchy Duke. Oh,
well, we'll have to make a prediction of that on July 16th. We'll have Mitchy Duke watch. But no, it's looking really interesting, the Premier League season. Although obviously the title is now wrapped up, Liverpool are champions. The relegation battle is still very tight. West Ham's still down there, Watford and Bournemouth to Villa. And as for the mid-table, another team that needs to be put in the shout, Southampton. They are consistently right now, keep rolling on, getting good results. Danny Ings is really on his way here to potentially getting the Golden Boot this season. What a season Southampton having. You know, they lost 9-0 to Leicester, what feels like a long, long time ago. But ever since then, they're really rolling on. They're only 5 points away from 7th place.
Yeah, I mean, I think... Sorry, Kieran. I think when they lost 9-0, I think everybody who's a football fan would have been thinking, oh, that's the end for Ralph Hasenhüttl. But fair play to him, because he has taken that Southampton side, which would have been devoid of confidence. They'd have been shocked. Imagine losing 9-0. A professional Premier League side, so like Southampton, who were a decent side, they have decent players. Imagine getting beaten 9-0 and then not sacking your manager. I think that's just a statement of how Southampton are run. And it is fair play to them, because they have come out and they are a very good team. They have very good players. Like, I think Nathan Redmond is a very good player. I know he's balding for his age, but I think he's a very good player. And I think Southampton, if I look at their side, there's only a few positions where I think that's where they need to strengthen, and they could become like where Everton are, where Burnley are at the moment. They could become that sort of team that challenges for Europe. Because if Danny Ings is banging 25 goals a season in, there's no stopping him.
And that's what Southampton fans have been crying out for. Of course, we always remember the very, very memorable team that they had a couple of years ago, which had Mane in there, Graziano Pelle. You always see that image going round every year of, can you believe this Southampton side from 5 years ago? They need to have a side like that once again. They're not necessarily going to have quality players like they did at that point, but as you said, they've got a great striker banging goals. They've got a great winger right now, Nathan Redmond, who is really starting to show what he can do, which is something that a lot of Southampton fans have been waiting for. The defence has been pretty good as well this season, starting to kick on again. And it's good to see that the Europa League race and the Champions League race is really, really wide open. I mean, if you put it into perspective, Burnley are only 10 points off 3rd place.
I mean, if I'm saying that Brighton aren't safe if they're only 6 points off relegation, then Southampton can get into Europe, can't they?
With the way that some of these teams are playing right now, I think absolutely.
It depends who's got to play each other, because, I mean, realistically, Southampton won't get into Europe, but Brighton definitely could go down.
It is. There's still plenty of games left to go. I mean, I'm just looking at their fixture list now, Southampton, just to see what games they've got. They've still got to play City, Everton, Manchester United, and then after that they've got Brighton, Bournemouth and Sheffield United. 3 games they can look at and think we could get 9 points out of them, and dependent on the rest of the league,
who do you guys
could move up.
Sorry, Josh. Who do you guys think is going to go down from the Premier League? Like Norwich, unfortunately, they're already down. But the other 2 teams, who do you think it's going to be? I think it's going to be Villa and West Ham.
Yeah, I think today is the biggest decider for if West Ham can somehow gain a point from this Chelsea game, they're staying up. But if they lose, I don't know. With Bournemouth.
Me and Kieran,
Bournemouth.
And we both said the same thing. As soon as they conceded to Tottenham, it just went. They were awful. But I think they were in the game and they played all right. That they've got a good team. Like I'm sorry, but when you've got a front three of Haller, when he's fit, you've got Haller, Bowen, and Felipe Anderson. That is that's no disrespect, but that is a Europa League front three. That those 3 could play in Europa League and be content with it.
Most of them have, apart from the other two, I'm pretty sure have. And to be fair though, Josh, I'm with you. I think it's Villa and
Bournemouth
Bournemouth.
are doomed.
I've just
Bournemouth
picked
have
Bournemouth
still got to
fixtures.
play United, Tottenham, Leicester, Man City, Southampton, and Everton, and Newcastle before the end of the season.
Right, maybe
If I was a Bournemouth fan,
Yeah.
I'd be praying to the Lord that we pick up even a point for the rest of the season. Newcastle look great.
They've got Newcastle tonight, aren't they?
Yeah, they've got Newcastle tonight at 6. United are firing all cylinders. Tottenham, it sounds crazy, but there's an opportunity maybe to pick up a point, maybe 3 if they can beat them. I don't know, but with the way that they are right now, probably not. Leicester is a decent opportunity. City, no chance. Southampton is an opportunity, but it all depends on how Southampton play at that point. And then Everton at the end of the season, that could be a decider whether Everton get into the Europa League or not. So if I was a Bournemouth fan,
I'll make it interesting. I'll go Norwich, Bournemouth, Watford.
Ooh. So we're all going different ones.
Yeah, just because if I went for the same as Josh, it's boring, isn't it? So I'll go Aston Villa. No, I don't. I go Norwich, Bournemouth, Watford. That's what I mean. Basically, below Brighton, there's 1 point separating 4 teams, and then there's Norwich. So Norwich are definitely there, but it's between them 4 for me. I can't see Newcastle and bloody Brighton hopefully not getting dragged down into that battle. But Bournemouth, I agree with you, Josh. They look a little bit doomed.
They're such a strange team. I'm just looking at the past results. 4-0, this is since January. 4-0 loss to West Ham, 3-0 loss to Bournemouth, 1-0 loss to Norwich. But then they beat Brighton 3-1. They only lost by 1 goal to Arsenal. They only lost 1 goal to Sheffield United. Then they get beat by Burnley. Then they do a 2-2 draw with Chelsea, lose by 1 goal to Liverpool, and then lose by 1 goal to Bournemouth, and then lose. They're such a strange team.
which team's that?
Bournemouth.
Bournemouth.
To themselves.
Pardon?
You just said that Bournemouth lost to Bournemouth. I think that's why I was a bit confused. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I got caught. I thought you meant West Ham at first.
Sorry, to Palace. They lost 2-0, but they've been dominated by weaker sides, not weaker sides, but the weaker sides in the league. But then they've got close results against the bigger sides.
To be fair,
You need to beat the team, don't you?
Bournemouth's team, I don't think has been good enough to stay up for a number of years now. They don't do enough to stay in the league at all. But Eddie Howe's so bloody good. And to me, it's a little bit like Burnley, because Burnley's squad's not good enough to be where it is. But that's the mastery of Sean Dyche. He gets the best out of his players. And Eddie Howe has been overachieving at Bournemouth for a long time. And I think if they go down, it won't be people clamouring to get Bournemouth players. It'll be people clamouring for Bournemouth's manager, in my opinion.
Should he be sacked? Because in my opinion, his record is horrendously bad. And there was, I think The Athletic actually put out an article about this. And they said it was something like 27 out of 36 games out of the last couple of months and that Bournemouth haven't won. If that was any other Premier League manager, they would have been sacked instantly. So I just wanted to put that question out of whether you think Howe should be sacked or not.
Just give him till the end of the season. There's no need to change it now. We've seen it before. I mean, we saw it when Ranieri won the league. Everyone thought, a year later, why the bloody hell are you getting rid of him? He's just won you the league title, but there's no space for kind of sentimentality, really, in football. But I think Eddie Howe's done... It's a bit like, do you know when Chris Hughton got sacked last year and we all thought, bloody hell, he's done really good for Brighton, he has. It's a bit unfair, but Brighton are better off for it. I don't think Bournemouth will be. I think if they lose Eddie Howe, they're just going to sit in the Championship for a month.
I'm trying to think who could come in.
Well, there is available. There's, of course, the Wally with the Brolly. He is available. Still waiting for a job.
Right. Anyway, if Bournemouth go down, for example, I think there's a number of teams that go if they go down, their club's going to get rinsed by the players. Like if Bournemouth go down, I'm not being funny, but I'm not seeing Nathan Ake turning up to Preston away next season, and I'm not seeing David Brooks. He won't be there next year. Callum Wilson, he might be there. But go on.
There's a few. Like, I understand where you're coming from. There's a few. But, for example, do you know, Norwich, no one's going to really want to raid Norwich. Whereas, for example, do you know, like, if you say, like, West Ham go down,
yeah,
like, everyone will be clamouring for their whole starting 11.
I think West Ham what they have to sell as well, because, I mean, if you go down, you can't play in the Championship with people on, like, I'm pretty sure Felipe Anderson's on, like, 90 grand a week, isn't he?
Not when there's no financial fair play for that
Ah.
season. So they'll be able to run that squad. Probably depending on how they were position-wise in January. If they weren't in that playoff spot kind of area, they'd probably have to flog.
I mean,
Could you imagine Seb Haller, after performing in a Europa League semi-final within 2 years, he's rocking up at
Rotherham away.
He's going to be turning up at Rotherham. Get in there. I mean, I'm going to have a look at the comments here. There's been a lot of comments about the relegation stuff that we've been talking about. Chris did put West Ham, one of those teams that underachieve every season. I expected them to finish top 10 this season, challenge for Europe. Squad on paper should be doing better. I think for the last 500 years, everybody expects West Ham to get into Europe. They never do.
What? They need an Ancelotti level manager. Because I'm sorry, Pellegrini at City was just gifted a good squad, to be fair. And David Moyes is David Moyes.
Yeah, David Moyes is David Moyes, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think they need not Allegri. I don't think they're going to get Allegri. I think, maybe Niko Kovac. I don't know someone at that level. I don't know.
I think Ronaldo's made a good point here. He said that Schalke could ideally pick up Eddie Howe. I mean, it's just a language barrier, isn't it? That's the only thing. I know Schalke have got rid of Caligari already to Augsburg.
But I like that idea.
For some reason, I just don't see an English manager going over just because of that language barrier. I think players can sort of go over and there's a basic understanding, but trying to explain your game plan and your tactics to players that the 90% of them probably won't speak amazing English.
The thing for me is, I can't see Eddie Howe at another club. That's the thing. Like, I could just never picture Eddie Howe turning up to any other club than Bournemouth.
I'm just looking at the League Manager Association of the year, so that's voted by all the English managers, all the English league managers, all 4 divisions. And Eddie Howe he won it in 2015. That's when Bournemouth got promoted, right? He's in with Alex Ferguson, Roy Hodgson, David Moyes. Like, this is when they were good at managing, I'd like to say. Pep Guardiola, Conte, Ranieri, Brendan Rodgers is there somehow. But like Arsene Wenger, he's in like good company, and obviously Chris Wilder's there now. He has been good with Bournemouth, and sometimes teams do just need to stick. He's been there since 2012. He's nearly been there 8 years, and look where they've come from. But they were in League One.
To be the devil on the shoulder, how long do you stick before you fold?
I think
there's certain projects which last a very, very, very long time, and that's rare now these days. The Alex Ferguson, Manchester United was a very, very long project. The Wenger of Arsenal was a little bit too long of a project, but still lasted a long time. I just don't think I like Howe at Bournemouth, but he won't be there for much longer. I really don't think. I think Bournemouth will eventually do what Leicester did, and either another club comes in for him and Howe wants to go and move on to a new project, or B, they take a big, big gamble and sack him. And there will be so many people, and if that does ever happen, it will be a Leicester Ranieri situation again. There will be people crying over social media saying, why have you sacked him? He's a great manager. But he'll probably go somewhere else and do a really, really good job. And Bournemouth will look and think, bollocks, we've got rid of him. But I just don't see him being there for much longer.
Well, Chris has asked a good question. He's asked if, the Ryan Fraser situation, has that affected Bournemouth's chances of staying up? And I don't think it has. Because he's not been to the level that he was last year, Ryan Fraser. Like he was insane last year with the amount of assists and goals he got. But this year, he's just looked off. Maybe it is because of the contract thing. Maybe that's why he's looked off. But for Bournemouth, they've got like Callum Wilson. He's still scoring goals. I think he's got 13 this season or something. But that's what he normally. That's just less than he'll normally get because he normally goes cold in middle of the season. I don't know what it is for Bournemouth this season. I just don't know what's happened. Like maybe it's the defence or something, but they've not really changed much, have they? They've not really sold anybody or bought anybody in that's changed their side. Maybe Chris Method.
Well, that's where the problem is. I think the real issue with Bournemouth is they have spent a lot of cash on genuinely shit signings. Yeah, they brought in Solanke for God knows how much, and he's been awful this season, and maybe it's just a thing of he's short of confidence and that. We saw him at the Under-20s World Cup where they won it. He was incredibly good, was the top scorer, was the player of the tournament, which, You compare some of the biggest names in world football are on that list, including, I think, Messi, Pogba, those types of players. They bought Jordan Ibe a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
He did absolutely nothing. Useless, waste of space. Now he's leaving on a free. Just proves how bad he's been for them. Once again, is that just another situation of where he's been short of confidence? I think they've spent a lot of money in the wrong areas.
They've tried to sign players and then just return to Old Faithful year after year and kind of rely.
I mean, if you look at who they signed this year, I do agree with what you're saying. Like, they signed Jack Stacey and they signed Chris Metham. How many times have those two actually started over Steve Cook and who plays at right back? Who was
Adam Smith.
Adam Smith.
I think the thing is, Stacey's got a future. The best signings they've made are players that will be good in a few years. Like David Brooks will be really good eventually, and Jack Stacey will be really good eventually. Mepham will be really good eventually. But when you're trying to stay in the Premier League year on year, you need some. I mean, they signed that. They've been unfortunate with injuries. I mean, they signed that Albert Danjuma Grunewald for like 12.
He's good.
But he's been injured.
I mean,
So
David Brooks has also been injured, hasn't he, for like the majority. Well, he would have been out for the whole season if the coronavirus break didn't happen.
Exactly.
And he's come back now, and he's probably looked like one of Bournemouth's better players.
Yeah, Harry Wilson, but he's only on loan. He's been all right, but he's only on loan, so he's going to go back eventually.
I think that Bournemouth made signings expecting them to be pushing up to the mid-table. I think that the Bournemouth board will not have thought that they'd been in a relegation battle this year. Looking at how they've previously performed over the past few seasons, how many goals Wilson's scoring, how well they played last season, how good they had defensive record last season with that back four, and Aaron Ramsdale, of course, getting on. I don't think the board will have expected Bournemouth to be in that relegation battle, which is why I think they spent the money that they spent.
They've just spent it bad though. That's the only problem is, yes, you always can't tell whether someone's going to hit off straight away. Because, I mean, do you remember when Everton went on the spending spree and I think one of them was good and it was Gylfi Sigurdsson and the rest just never really played? So you don't know who's going to be good or not, but they've moved away from what made them brilliant and they've rode the luck, I think, for a while now in terms of I don't think they've been at the quality to stay up, but they have. And now I think it's just finally caught up with them, and I don't think they are good enough personally.
But it's tough for them. It is tough times. I'll ask one last question because Chris has put something in the chat. Benalda says, wasn't Ake injured at the start? That could have demoralised the defence. I think he was for a little bit of time. He was out injured. And then Chris put, do you see Eddie Howe managing another Premier League club if Bournemouth go down? For example, Crystal Palace, no offence, Hodgson getting on.
The thing is about Crystal Palace as well, like as soon as a new manager goes in that club, they are going to be a completely different side. Because no offense to Hodgson, but they play defensive style of football. Like if you take Zaha out of that team, they don't score goals. If you see how many, no offense to Jordan Ayew, but if you look at that team, they don't score that many goals. I think if a new manager goes in there, it's going to be a completely new Crystal Palace side, completely new play style, probably some new players. Most of the old guard will get shipped out, and it could be a good thing for Palace, I'm not sure, but I couldn't see Eddie Howe at Crystal Palace. And
to be fair, Zaha's been crap this year.
He has.
He's not been to the... It's one of them, he's Ryan Fraser. I think it's one of them, though. Both of them players were linked with moves in the summer. And they've come back this year and they are not the same player. So I do... There may be that... It was like... do you remember Marco Silva at Watford? When he got his head turned by Everton? And then he just got shunned out the door straight away. That might be very similar to players that had their head turned in the summer by big move. I think Arsenal wanted both Zaha and Fraser at one point, and they may thought that were better for their career, and they've had to stay for another year, which delays their moves.
Well, I mean, speaking on Arsenal, Saka signed a new contract today, and obviously Ryan Fraser will probably find out where he's going in a few days as well.
It's a big time for a lot of Premier League clubs. Of course, making all the deals and making sure that players on loan decide whether they stay at clubs till August or not. I know there's been a whole situation with Saliba and Saint Etienne that's been just going on for quite a while now about him playing in the cup final. But we'll move on to the next fixture now. We went from Everton to Bournemouth. We like talking about the Premier League, it's good. But we also like talking about Serie A because this is a massive, massive game on Tuesday night between AC Milan and Juventus. Now, AC Milan, we know at the beginning of the season was struggling big time. Really, really poor. We're down to the bottom half of the table. But since they've come back from the coronavirus break, they've been absolutely outstanding. 2 wins on the bounce now. And they currently sit in the league in 7th place on 42 points. As for Juventus, well, you expect Juventus to do what they usually do. They continue steamrolling on. I know, as you guys said yesterday, they played last night against Genoa, big 3-1 win, great goals in that game. And they're looking to try and get another big 3 points on the table for their season. As far as I'm aware, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is still out injured. Of course, he picked up a very serious injury that luckily hasn't kept him from retiring. He was very, very close to having to retire in terms of the injury, but he's not back. But in terms of AC Milan, they picked up a really big 2-0 win against Roma. And now they've got a game tonight against Spal, which you would expect them to win, realistically speaking. If they could win this game, they will go into 6th place, depending on how Napoli play. Is there a very, very slight chance AC Milan can finally get themselves back into Europa League football? 6 points from 5th place. Roma and Napoli do actually face each other on Sunday next week, so that could really change things up. Or is it going to be another year of wait for Milan fans?
Probably another wait. I mean,
do you think?
I'm just trying to load up their fixtures again.
It's all right. I mean, as I said, there's 6 points.
They've got tough. They've got where is it? Lazio, Juventus, Napoli, Atalanta. Like, that's 4 tough games.
Do you think at the start of the year AC Milan fans would have expected European football? Because I feel like they've been better come the turn. Like, they started not very good. They were very shaky. I think we were speaking about them saying what has happened to AC Milan. And they had a little bit of turn of form. And they've kind of picked very similar to, I'm trying to think of the team. I can't remember who it is. But Hertha Berlin, that was it. Like, very similar in terms of they were shaky, they were rocky, then made a turn and they started pushing towards Europe, but Hertha obviously fell short. I don't know whether I think they will fall short again this year, but there'll be positives for them, definitely, but I just don't think they'll come this year.
I mean, they're a sleeping giant, aren't they, really? Like, they are. They're a massive club. They need to be in the Europa League. Like, they're a team that you think that should be in the Europa League every season when you look at Serie A. They get in there. It's just a question of can they do it this season or can they do it last season? Like that comparison to Berlin's perfect.
Yeah, the pedigree AC Milan have got. Sorry, Josh, but the pedigree they have.
Right.
When you think of AC Milan, you think of all the legendary players they've had. Seedorf, they've had bloody Maldini, all these quality players. And then now you look at them and they've had Fabio Borini in the past couple of years. No offense to Fabio Borini. But I agree with KD that they have been sleeping, but they've been sleeping for far too long.
And they've got some great games, as Rowan said, still to come. A lot of the big teams still left to play. If they want to get into Europe, they're going to have to really go out and push in this final quarter of the season. Stefano Pioli is doing an incredible job since he's come in. Coming back to your question earlier of whether Milan fans expected to get into Europe this season, I disagree. I think it's like a kid on Christmas Day. They're just praying for Santa to come and Santa being the Europa League. It's a long, long wait for them. They've had many, many years out. And I think now it's more of a case of it's not expectations. It's just prayers at this point for Milan fans. And I think any Milan fan would agree that they had a great opportunity, I think, 2 seasons ago where they actually did get Europa League football. And you thought maybe that was going to be the point where Milan wouldn't necessarily get back to being the best team in the league, but it's a starting point. But then they got banned because of financial fair play issues, and that's where they've had a real problem since they had Chinese owners move in a couple of years ago. But as Roman said, they've got games against Juventus, they've got a game against Lazio, they've got a game against Napoli, who I have to give credit to Gattuso. It's like big games.
Lazio, Juventus, then Napoli. It's not like they're spread out along the games that they've got left. They have to play them 3 in a row, which I think is a good thing for them.
Absolutely. I mean, if they could pick up a win against Napoli, remember they won Coppa Italia. So as far as I'm aware, it comes down to 7th place now for the Europa League. If, of course, Napoli do get that Europa League spot. So it is a big, big test for AC Milan. As for Juventus, well, we know what Juventus are like. They're going to continue steamrolling on. Not being exactly convincing this season, which is why the title race has gone on for so long. But I said earlier, they've got tough fixtures themselves. Turin derby coming up on Saturday. You know, a derby, you don't know what's going to happen. Milan, of course, Atalanta, Lazio, and Roma are all still to play. Is there a very small chance that Lazio could maybe win the title? Now, I'm being very optimistic here by saying that. Don't know whether anybody feels the same.
4 points is nothing. Yeah, they're definitely another chance. 4 points is 2 games.
4 points is 2 games, but it is also Juventus.
Yeah, but if Liverpool were only 4 points, then we'd be saying, oh, it is on Liverpool. It's the same premise. Lazio's still in it. 4 points is nothing.
It's all to do with the game against Juventus. If they beat Juventus, it really is. Yeah. There is a chance.
And I'm looking now. What a way to end the season. Last game for Lazio will be against Napoli, which could be a very, very big deciding game when that does come round. So there's a lot still to play for in Serie. That fixture is on Tuesday at 8:45. And then the final fixture we're going to talk about today.
We're not doing a prediction.
Oh, yeah, you actually go on then. Yeah, we'll do a prediction for it. Go on, KD. I'll let you go first.
3-1 to Juventus.
3-1 to Juventus. KL, what are you feeling for this one?
2-2.
2-2. Rowan?
1-0 AC.
1-0 AC. Ooh. I'm going to go 3-1 Juventus, I think, on that one. In terms of the chat, Chris has said Milan 1-2 Juventus. My prediction, Juventus to stride on to yet another Serie A title. Of course, they have got some big games left still to play. And then Benaldo, he hasn't put a prediction in, but I assume we'll probably put one in a little bit. So that is the Italian game of the week. There's still some big fixtures to come, a lot of games to play there. Now on to La Liga. This is a big one. We haven't talked about Real Madrid for a long, long time. I think the last time we talked about them was when we had the big debate about Benzema on whether we thought he was a world-class striker or not. Mm-hmm. And I think we can come back to that point now and say, absolutely, Benzema is a world-class striker of the highest order. We've only got to talk about, Ronaldo obviously leaving. We always talked about, whether Real Madrid were able to kick on. They got Hazard coming in. He's, of course, struggled with injuries and had a bit of a turbulent time with injuries. That's kept him out. But he's been the shining star this season for Real Madrid. It feels like every week there's some sort of highlight of Benzema doing a skill, whether it be a backheel assist, whether he's hitting one from 30 yards out. He's been unbelievable this season, and as has Real Madrid. It's been a long, long time now for Real Madrid in terms of winning the title. It's been 3 years, which for a team like Real Madrid is a long, long time. And now this seems like the greatest opportunity for them to finally get the La Liga title back in their hands. This is a game in hand, so they could go 4 points above Barcelona, which once again is a very, very big gap because there's not many fixtures left for Real Madrid in terms of big teams. They have one game left against the top 10. That is against Villarreal. As for Athletic Bilbao, well, for them, it's now a very, very tough season. It's more of a rebuild for them, of course. They've just lost Aduriz to retirement in the last couple of weeks. They're sat in 9th right now, 45 points. So they still do have a shout of getting into the Europa League. They're only, I think, 5 points off because it might go down to 7th place this season in La Liga. So 5 points isn't... In fact, actually, no, sorry, 2 points it'd be. So not really much of a shout in terms of how tight it is there. Do we think now Real Madrid's just going to kick on and win the league? Or do we think that the La Liga title race is still going to go down to the wire?
I think it's always going to go down to the wire when it's Barcelona and Real Madrid. But Real Madrid have looked far the better out of the two sides.
It's been a great season for them. I mean, I looked at the stats beforehand. Real Madrid this season haven't actually lost a game in the league since February. That was a 1-0 loss to Levante. But if you even go further past that, if we're going to where their second loss in the season would have been, we are going all the way back to before the season even started. It's looking like it's got to be wrong now. They've lost 3 games this season. That's got to be wrong. There we go. We're going back to Mallorca in November time.
And they lost 1-0.
Yeah, 19th of November for 2 losses, which is unbelievable.
They didn't start that well, did they, either?
No, they were struggling. You might remember they was really struggling in the Champions League group stages. Club Brugge got a 2-2 draw against them. They were dropping points against some of the minnow sides.
They lost to Siska 3-0, weren't they, as well?
They did,
at
yeah.
At the Bernabeu.
So they have indeed struggled at the start, but it comes back again to the talk that we had about Benzema. He really has kicked on this season.
Yeah. He's a world-class striker. We give all the plaudits to Lewandowski. I still think Lewandowski's the better player, don't get me wrong, but we do need to start mentioning his name and in that sort of conversation for when we talk about elite level number 9s. Because he doesn't bring much else, don't get me wrong. He doesn't bring, anything else but being number 9, but he doesn't need to. He does what all number 9 should do, and that's score goals, and he does it in bucket loads. So brilliant player.
He's a very similar player. Well, I'm going to compare him to a very similar player to Olivier Giroud in the fact that he doesn't always score the goals, but he's got that technical ability. And when he does score a goal, it is a very good goal. But in terms of being a number 9, I think Karim Benzema is definitely, like Kieran said, if we talk about Lewandowski being one of the best in the world, Karim Benzema's not that far behind him.
Absolutely. And it'll be a case when he does eventually leave Real Madrid, there'll probably be a lot of fans that will look back and maybe regret not appreciating Benzema a little bit more than they did in the past. Of course, Ronaldo having all of the limelight and Benzema kind of being pushed to the side. But it's now nice to see that even when Hazard came in, I think a lot of us expected Hazard to be the player that took the limelight. But in actual fact, of course, because he has had injuries, Benzema has been the one that's kind of stepped up this season and really taken Real Madrid to the next level that they needed to go. And of course, they're still in the Champions League, which they've got that big game against Man City, which will be interesting to find out what happens there in August time. And in terms of predictions for this one, Athletic Bilbao, they, as I said, have lost Aduriz because of a severe injury. He's now retired, which is a shame to see because what a great player he's been over his career. And I know it happened a couple of weeks ago, this retirement, but what a fantastic player. A real stalwart for the Liga over the last couple of years.
Yeah, a real servant, like a really good striker. Amazingly, peaked at about 33 or something like that when he had that great season like 2 years ago. But yeah, Bilbao fans will look. He will go down in club history. I don't know if he's at statue level, but he's got a place in the museum for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, there's been some world-class goals from him. I can always remember, of course, one of his most final recent goals was that bicycle kick on the opening day against Barcelona, which went worldwide because of how good it was. But I think even better than that is the volley that he scored against Marseille in the Europa League. One of the most outrageous volleys I think I've seen technical-wise, the way it's chipped up to him and he just goes, fuck it, I'm going to smash it from just a stupid, absurd angle that he's hit it from. And he will go down, as you said, in history. Maybe not as a statue player, but he will always be in the memory of the fans. But for them, they're in a period of rebuild. Iñaki Williams has played every game for them. We're talking triple figures now. He's played, I think, 150 games or something absurd in a row, which is mental. It's unbelievable.
The fitness you have to play so many consistent games without getting injured, without having fatigue, is unbelievable.
I mean, they've definitely jinxed him now. They've brought it up.
Oh, yeah.
He's definitely in the next couple of weeks. Now someone's mentioned it. Just don't mention it. But it is
150 is.
Yeah, it's a massive feat. I mean, you see people in other leagues who can't get fit and can't even play 10 games straight without going down injured. Let alone triple. The only players you can really mention are like goalkeepers, but they get subbed out for cup games, so it don't really, So it is impressive how long he's been going.
And usually it's a great feat. You know, when you look back at the end of the season, you think to yourself, "Oh wow, this player's played every single game this league season." Usually you think, "Oh, that's a great achievement." But for somebody to do it now for what is pretty much 3 or 4 seasons is unbelievable. And I think he is the next player to take Aduriza's mantle and try and make himself Athletic Bilbao's hero for the future and more to come, of course. I know he signed a contract till I think 2027 or something ridiculous with the club. He's, I feel like, going to be the next one club man. But we'll take score predictions for this one. Kivy, what we're feeling?
I'm not sure. I'm gonna go 2-1 to Real.
2-1 to Real. Close game. Kevin out.
I'll go 3-1 Real.
3-1 Real. Rowan?
1-0 Bilbao.
I was going to go for that. I'm going to go...
Take it.
I'm going to go...
If you want 1-0, I'll go a different score.
No, I'm going to go 4-1 Real Madrid.
Right, well, okay.
I'll go wild in the Isles with a random score. No, 4-1 Real Madrid. I'm probably going to be horribly wrong. And we'll look back next week and think, well, Athletic Bilbao did win, and I'll regret that decision. But I'll say 4-1. So that is this week's fixtures. There's plenty of other games still to come across world football. As I said before, the DFB Pokal final is between Leverkusen and Bayern Munich. That is coming up on Thursday night, I'm pretty sure. There's some other great fixtures as well going on. A couple of the minnow teams across the Liga as well, still battling it out for the relegation battles. Not just in La Liga, though, of course, still going on in Serie, still going on in Premier League. So keep your eyes out. Lots of fixtures still to come over the next couple of weeks before the seasons do end across world football.
I was going to say, have you not seen Iceland's new logo reveal for their international team?
I thought you meant the shop then.
I thought you meant the shop.
No, sorry, Iceland, the country, Iceland. Their new logo is mental. It's way back summarised perfectly. It's Transformers mixed with Skyrim, basically, and the video for it is amazing. If you get a chance to watch it, watch it.
No doubt Hal Dawson will have probably been the producer of that video.
The director, yeah.
Get in there. We'll have that one. But in terms of league football, even when league football ends, there's still a lot more to come. Now, of course, you'll be aware in August time, over the last couple of weeks, it was announced that the Champions League and the Europa League are coming back. The way it's going to work is very, very slightly different. There's going to be some games that are played as one-legged matches, of course. There's still a couple of games in the Europa League. For example, Roma versus Sevilla that didn't get to play a second leg. As for the other games that did play their first leg, they are going to play their second leg fixtures. So, for example, if you are a Manchester United fan, put your feet up, expect plenty of goals. They're already 5-0 up in the first leg. It's probably going to end in double figures. So it's quite nice to have a second leg where, you know, for some teams they can play weaker sides. But for the rest of the competition, it's going to be played out in the Champions League in Lisbon, in Portugal. As for the Europa League, they're going to be played in Germany. Now, all of the build-up is coming up. And the reason why we're talking about this is, of course, because there is going to be a draw for these next stages of the competitions. Now, it's going to work a little bit differently to how it has in previous years. They are going to be doing for both Champions League and Europa League, the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and the finals. Now, we haven't actually properly done the draw for a long, long time. I mean, we're really now going back towards nearly, well, it was like the start of the year, wasn't it? Christmas time.
16th of December.
Which is crazy when you think about it, how long ago when it was me and Rowan sat in the room and you were there with your Tinny Quality Streets.
Me lovely Quality Streets.
Can't
Oh,
beat
a lovely
it.
day, that.
It was really good, and we're going to be doing that again. Now, as I said, it's going to work differently. We will have an outline for how the rest of both of these tournaments are going to work from these draws taking place. Now, the Champions League draw is going to take place July the 10th at 12 p.m. UK time. We're going to go live about 11:30 to 11:45 with a bit of build-up ahead of that draw. And then straight after that, at 1 p.m. UK time, we'll also have the Europa League draw taking place. Once again, quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals are all going to be outlined. So you'll be able to see our opinions of who we think might go on and win the tournament. But of course, we do have to take into account that those, including teams like Leverkusen, have got a second leg still to play. of course. So keep your eyes out. We're going to be building up to that. July the 10th for that. You don't want to miss it. It was good fun last time. We're all going to be here this time. It's going to be a little bit different, not in the studio, which is a shame, but we're all going to be in the building, and it's going to be certainly good fun. So keep your eyes out for that. We'll keep you up to date a little bit more as we get closer to July the 10th, and hopefully we can get a lot more people in the building preying on their teams. Of course, Rangers still technically in the draw, so maybe we might get a couple of Rangers
There were
fan
a big
ins.
Rangers contingent when we did the draw last time.
Yeah, so technically they'll still be in the draw because their match won't have been played. So who knows?
3-1 down.
3-1 down, yeah.
They're only 3-1 down. It could happen. If it's at a neutral ground, it could happen.
Exactly. I mean, I think we talked about it quite a while ago, didn't we, about these draws? And we said, well, they've got to go to Leverkusen, they'll struggle. But now, because it's at a neutral venue, unless you're a German team, being Leverkusen, these games are going to be really, really interesting.
But we saw
very, very interesting.
Wolfsburg played against Leverkusen, and Leverkusen weren't really that convincing against Mainz either.
No, so it really could be open. There's a lot of games which are still tightly balanced. You might have seen that Frankfurt were 3-0 down to Basel in the first leg. They're going to actually be in Germany, as far as I'm aware. It is taking place in Frankfurt for some of the games.
We're going to be seeing Timmy Chandler.
I did read.
We might be.
One's happening in Duisburg because I managed to think I can load it up 2 seconds. I need to go to my history.
But we'll have a look and see where these games are being played, because I know they're being played around Germany. And as for the Champions League, they're being played in Portugal, and there's no Portuguese sides left in it now. So, of course, every team will be playing in neutral venues. What we've seen for the Europa League.
It's going to be, so the round of 16 of venues to be confirmed, but the quarterfinals are going to be in Cologne, Duisburg, Dusseldorf, and Gelsenkirchen.
Gelsenkirchen. Ooh. So there we go. So every team is going to be playing in a neutral venue. We will, of course, be building up to that as we get closer. The games do kick off in August time. We'll probably do a preview show at some point for those fixtures, not just the Europa League, but the Champions League. But, of course, build up to that for the draw, July the 10th. If you don't want to miss that, we'll be live at 11:45 a.m. UK time for that. It's an early get up. Sorry, boys, for that, of course. Manchester United will still be in the draw, so you'll be able to find out who you're facing. And in terms of the other stuff on the channel, of course, we have plenty more to come. The Wrestling Corner, you did have your episode go up yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
And of course, next week, will you be talking about the Big American Bash?
Well, the big American Bash. Yeah. No, so next week, tonight, as we speak, AEW are hosting Fighter Fest Day 1 and WWE doing the Great American Bash. Close enough, Josh. This week.
Big Great is the same thing, isn't it? It sounds better, the Great American Bash.
They're all bashing. So, yeah. I nearly got you then. Yeah, so we did have previews for that, and then next week we'll be talking about that, and then we'll do previews for week 2. So, yeah, it's a hefty time in wrestling.
Is indeed. Of course, next Wednesday we will have the Top Corner. That'll be at 3 p.m. UK time. Of course, we'll look towards more fixtures. And, of course, we'll have our kits and see what horrible kits we had for our clubs. As for the NFL Corner, is there any big bashes going on there?
No, there'll be no bashing on the NFL Corner tomorrow.
No point tuning in then.
Bashing other teams' quarterbacks because they're crap, because we're doing a quarterback's tier list. It was close
Oh,
enough.
No.
Yeah.
You're just going to put Gardner last.
No, we're not. I'm not going to say, but we will start introducing a quarterback tier list, and we're going to do a few tier lists and a few fun ranking videos going forward, because nothing is happening. So we've got to try and create our own content. So we'll be doing a bit of that tomorrow, and I can confirm it will be tomorrow.
There we go. Do you know what time tomorrow?
No.
So, keep refreshing to find out when it is.
No, Josh, you've got a day. Don't expect a time as well.
Benaldo's put Cam Newton to New England.
Oh, it is. It is indeed. And it's a brilliant, brilliant signing. So I'll have to add him to the tier list tomorrow, because he didn't have a team up until a couple of days ago.
There we go.
Rowan's gone. So
Rowan's departed early, and I think that's the perfect time to end, of course. We'll be back next week at 3 p.m. UK time. Rowan is a little bit perplexed.
No, I accidentally refreshed my stream. My thing.
Well, you've come at the perfect time. Honestly, guys, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, KD. Thank you, Rowan. Thank you, Kieran L. And of course, you don't want to miss out because we've got something brand new coming to the channel. Rowan, talk us through it.
Yeah, well, I've been waiting a long time for this, but the F1 is back this weekend. I think all the teams are actually finally over there. On Fridays qualifying, Saturdays, Fridays practice, Saturdays qualifying, but on Sunday, I'll go around 10 to 2 possibly. And I'm going to be giving my live reaction to the Austrian Grand Prix. It's the first race back. There are floods and severe rain predicted. So either we're going to get a Hockenheim race from 2019 or we're getting no race at all. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, 10 to 2 Austrian Grand Prix live reactions. We're giving it a go, see if it works.
Yeah, it's something different, but of course, we've got plenty of other sports coming back, and F1 is one of those. So you can join Rowan for that 10 to 2 on Sunday. If there is a race, or if not, Rowan, maybe you could get your Scalextrics out and you could do a practice race
I'll load up
for
the
it.
F1 game. I'll do a fake race on that.
Oh, well, there we go. That'll be on Sunday. As I said, honestly, thank you for everybody that's watched. And as always, do send in your kits, as we said at the start of the show. Send in your kits. It is at @the_top corner. And for those of you that do watch, we'll look at your kits and see what we can decide is the worst kit out of all that have been picked. So thank you very much, Kieran. Thank you very much, Kieran L, Kieran D, and Rowan, as always. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, 3 p.m. UK time for more fixtures. But for now, enjoy the football, and we'll see you next week. See you later.
So long.
Bye.